AATBirds Weekly Report is the Eagle news, notes, and analysis you need.
Quick, he's going to go. What a give it to Smith, and they stop him again. Go back. He looks, fires for the end zone. Intercepted. The 20, the 10, the 5. Touchdown. Matt Ware. Midfield. He's at the 40. He's going to go. Deshaun Jackson. He steps up, he's hit, and falls forward. And he fumbles the football, and the Eagles have it. It's one. And the Eagles win.
It's all birds, all the time.
And welcome to another edition of the AATBirds Weekly Report. This is another Opposition Outlook. We are joined, as always, by Chip. He's on my corner. So I'm trying to point there, down there. We have Kendall joining us again, and we have special guest Lawrence Owen. He is host of Colts Law and Bleav in Colts podcast. So we'll get everything with him. We'll have him give himself some shout outs and everything where they can find you. But again, thanks for joining us to talk about this Eagles-Colts matchup.
Oh, absolutely, man. This is a highly anticipated game here in Indiana. I think this is a game that is looked at generally by a lot of national media, right? As well, the last game for Jeff Saturday really didn't count because the Raiders are in a bad situation. You're going up against currently the best team in the NFL. Let's see what you do against them to see, whether or not you can legitify this hiring of a former player. So honestly, I can't wait to break this down with you. And this is something that a lot of people are looking forward to. And
the first question I want to bring up to you, you did mention, in the opening there, talking about Jeff Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts hired Jeff Saturday after they fired Frank Reich. What's your thoughts on the hire? I know there's a lot of stuff going around, a lot of negativity on getting this guy who's never coached in the NFL, didn't work his way up through the ranks. What is your thought? And kind of what is the thought about the fan base of this hire?
Well, when the hire first happened, I was like everybody. I was like, what? What the heck is this? And it wasn't that I disliked Jeff Saturday. It was the fact that, he'd never coached before in his life. And then once I sat down and I thought about it and I kind of analyzed it as I do, I realized Jeff's going to bring everything the Colts have needed this season. This is a situation where they have lacked that leadership, that impactful leadership of getting the best out of your players, right? I love Frank Reich. He's a great play caller, and he's a player's coach as well, and players loved him, but he didn't bring that emotion that is sometimes needed to get out there when you're playing against hard-nosed teams. And you saw that this year, especially with the regression of the offensive line play, where last year the Colts were a top 3 offensive line, one of the best running games in football. Jonathan Taylor was killing everything. And this year now everything has just went to sputter. And it's all based off of that offensive line play, and they played poorly. You bring in Jeff Saturday. Jeff Saturday not only is a guy who's going to get the best out of his player, he's going to get the respect out of everybody, he's going to bring that juice, but he also understands the offensive line play, right? He's going to be able to get in during the game if he sees something. And it's said, that during the Raiders game, when a guy on the offensive line or a tight end or a wide receiver didn't block properly, Jeff Saturday would pull him off to the side as soon as he came to the sideline and say, hey, this is how you do this block properly, right? And then the next time they go out there, they see that same situation, and you see a much improved block happen. And that's why I think that you've seen a lot of improvement with the offensive line. And that was the big thing that was holding this team back. The defense currently for the Colts, number 4 in the NFL in yards allowed. Very, very highly respected Colts defense walking into this. Special teams again. another unit for the Colts. It's just been absolutely phenomenal. It's just been the offensive line holding back the running game and the passing game. I mean, Matt Ryan was sacked how many times? Like more than any other quarterback in the NFL, and the running game just wasn't getting it done. Jeff Saturday gets that line fixed, or at least get some improvement out of there, and the offense can really start moving because they do have a lot of good talent on that offensive side.
Now, I mean, nationally, the backlash that the hiring of Jeff Saturday got, I mean, from some big name guys. I mean, Bill Cowher lost his mind on. I mean, what are the thoughts on the national backlash? And did Frank Reich get a fair shot? I mean, I know that the carousel of quarterbacks came into conversation where he never really had quarterback play for more than a couple weeks at a time before having to change it out. You had the Carson Wentz drama. I mean, do you feel that Frank Reich got the hook too early? And your thoughts on the national backlash on the Jeff Saturday hire?
The hook too early. If the Colts hadn't gotten beaten as badly as they did against the Patriots, if the quarterback and the offensive line did not look so bad against the Patriots, where the quarterback was sacked 9 times, hit 167,000 times in a single game, then I don't think Frank Reich is fired, right? But that was the low point of the season. That game was worse than when they got blown out 24-0 to Jacksonville week 2. This was a situation where the team could not move the ball. They had 124 offensive yards. And this is an offensive head coach, right? A guy who's supposed to understand the offense. And he obviously was not able to make anything work. The offensive line was getting worse. The quarterback play was getting worse as the season went on. Jim Irsay wanted to save the season. This was a situation where Irsay was like, I think a move here will do it. They tried. They gave Frank a chance 3 weeks ago when Matt Ryan got hurt his shoulder, and then they brought in Sam Ellinger. And then the week after that, when they lost to Washington, they get rid of their offensive coordinator, Marcus Brady. Those were both Frank Reich moves. And trying to save his job. And then when he hit rock bottom against the Patriots, it was just time. It was time to make a move if you wanted to save your season, because the Colts still are not out of the playoff picture right now. They could legitimately still finish out 11-5-1. Is that going to happen? It's not. It's not good for bettors if you try to go that way, but I mean, you could still, 1 loss, 2 losses, you never know, when it comes to the national media, Irsay stayed within his rights as the owner for hiring an interim coach, right? This was not a situation. I don't think you can look at him and say, well, you didn't even give a minority a shot, on that situation, to where a lot of people were saying, because interim head coach, that Rooney Rule does not apply. And it's not like Jim Irsay has never hired, minority coaches in the past. I mean, I'm pretty sure this guy named Tony Dungy, first black coach to ever win a Super Bowl, pretty sure he was a Irsay hire, and then Caldwell right after that. So it's not like he hasn't done that in the past, and who knows what's going to happen this offseason. I'm sure that they're going to be very diligent in their hiring process for an actual head coach for the long-term future. When it comes to guys who has experience, such where you're talking about with Cowher and Joe Thomas and guys like that going in that direction with this hire, sometimes you need an outside look. There was a situation. Obviously, the offensive line coach was not going to get it fixed, because if he had, he'd already done it as the offensive line coach. Some of the guys inside the building. This is an offensive situation. You weren't getting the spark you needed from the players. I think this was a situation. It was unique to Indy, where they needed outside help, where they needed an outside look, and they also needed an offensive lineman to come in, maybe, someone with a lot of offensive line experience who was a leader of men. And this kind of just unique that Jeff Saturday really fit all of the criteria that what you needed right now. So I don't think this was a bad hire by Jim Irsay by any means. And again, it's not like it's for long term. It's just for 8 games, and we'll see what happens from there.
I was very confident in the Colts winning the South. Like I thought that was probably like one of the locks coming into the season. And then Shaq Leonard, struggled to stay healthy. How much has his loss affected you guys and your chances, of winning the division and making the playoffs? Because he's one hell of a player.
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody kind of looked at the Colts as being that team, to win the AFC South at the beginning of the year. But of course, everybody also thought the offensive line would play much, much better than what it has. So we'll see if Saturday could get that fixed, then hopefully, we'll get that turned around back on the right track. As for Darius Shaquille Leonard, his situation, he had that surgery earlier in the offseason on his neck, right? Which was what was affecting apparently not just his back, but his ankle as well, because it was affecting how he was stepping. And that's why he was dealing with ankle issues the last couple seasons. So he had that surgery, and it kind of seems like they rushed him back a little too soon, and then they had the setback. He had to have the surgery again. Losing a guy of the caliber of Shaq Leonard is disastrous.
For sure.
Generally, you cannot step and fill the shoes of a guy like that. What you can do is try to bring in somebody who could do the best that they could do at that situation and not have that big of a drop off. The Colts, Zaire Franklin has stepped in at the Mike linebacker because that's what Shaquille Leonard was supposed to be playing this season, and has played absolutely phenomenal at that position. He leads the team in tackles. I think he's second on the team in tackles for loss behind Grover Stewart. He's just, to me, I feel like he's one of the rising stars of this team. And the Colts have a very, very talented linebacking group. The entire position is very, very solid. And this past offseason, they hired former Pro Bowler for the Colts, Cato June. They've got 3 former Colts players on staff. 4 now, if you want to count Jeff Saturday as the interim head coach. But Cato June was a guy played very similar to Shaquille Leonard during their Super Bowl run. So hopefully Shaquille will come back next year and be better than ever. But definitely where it's felt the most for the loss of Shaquille is easily the turnover margin for the defense. Last year, the Colts were second in the NFL with 39 turnovers on defense. And this year they aren't even close. They're near the bottom of the NFL without Shaquille Leonard. I mean, Shaquille had a hand in I think 17 turnovers last year by himself. So that's impossible to replace.
Right.
Yeah, and one thing I want to talk about is what you mentioned earlier with the offensive line and how they struggled this season. But what are some changes that they made for this Raiders game? Now, I know I saw a clip that you posted with Will Fries playing the offensive guard position. I'm going to shout him out because he's a former Penn Stater, so I will give him that plug. But because I know Matt Pryor, who is a former Eagle that we know very well. I know he was slated there. He played a little right tackle when Braden Smith was hurt. There've been a lot of shuffling on the offensive line. What changes and what have they made in the past week or two that's kind of helped them kind of rejuvenate what you thought that was going to be this season?
Okay, so the Colts offensive line has had the second most different lineups in the NFL across the offensive line, starting lineups so far this season in just 10 games. They've been trying like crazy to try to fix that offensive line, figure out a lineup. Matt Pryor started the season off at left tackle, ended up going to right tackle, then right guard. And Philly fans, I'm sorry to say, he was absolutely awful and terrible at all three
We know.
positions. Okay.
Oh yeah,
I've been pounding the table. I was thinking that maybe he would be good at right guard because he is a bigger fella, and
we thought the same thing.
you know. But no, his awareness is not good, and his side to side movement is not good, and that's a hurtful situation. The left tackle position. Saturday, the way he said the best guy is going to come out there. We're going to practice, and the best guys that play the positions are going to go out there and start this game. And the starting lineup was rookie Bernard Ryman at left tackle, and his issue was he's a rookie, and he only played tackle for 1.5 years in college. He was a tight end before that, right? So there was a huge learning curve for Ryman. And to his benefit, Frank Reich, starting week 1, was giving him a drive or two every game to get experience in, right, and to learn. And so it came up to this game. Apparently the experience has paid off. He came in, he played the entire game at left tackle and did very, very well. Only gave up 1 pressure throughout the game. Now that sack that Max Crosby had was technically, in my opinion, on Ryman because Chandler Jones beat him around the edge and forced Matt Ryan to move out, and then Max Crosby was able to get him. And then obviously Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Braden Smith, these are all Pro Bowl, all pro guys, right? Across that offensive line. Each one of them are making $15 million or more a year. All right. And none of them have been playing to the money that they have been paid this year. And a lot of that is curious, when you have a left tackle and a right guard that was not playing well, you have to, when it comes to the offensive line, you have to have faith in the guys next to you, no matter what. That's one of the position groups that is very, very keen on that. That's very similar to the defensive backs. You have to trust the guys out there with you. Otherwise you can't do your job properly. So with the fact that Will Fries comes in, he plays well. Fries is a decent, he's smart, he's quick. He can get bowled over though with power moves. He's not the most upper body strength. He doesn't plant and cement himself hard against power rush moves. But in general, he does see stunts and picks them up very well. And that was the thing that the Colts have really had a lot of issues as of late. So Saturday just found those 5 guys, put them in the right spots, and said, you're the best that there is that we have for this position. If you have problems during the game, come to me. If I see it, I'll come to you, and we'll try to work on it as the game progresses. And that's why I believe that they played much better against the Raiders.
So another thing that, and I already mentioned it a little bit, but the quarterback selections at this point, and I see you smiling because you know where I'm going with this. I mean, you go from Phillip Rivers to Carson Wentz to Matt Ryan to now Sam Ellinger is the guy's name. I'm pretty sure. I mean, what is the long-term plan at quarterback? Because this whole renting a quarterback thing doesn't seem very sustainable with a team that, as you mentioned, has a lot of really good pieces in place that's not out of the running for this thing yet. You went from Matt Ryan, he's going to sit the rest of the year, to now he's the starter again. So you obviously didn't see enough with Sam. You got Nick Foles sitting way deep on the bench. I mean, what is the long-term plan for the quarterback position for Indianapolis?
So the quarterback carousel, forgive me for doing that, over the last 5 years for the Indianapolis Colts really has to do with opportunity to get one, right? The Colts have had winning records pretty much every year, which means they weren't able to get a quarterback high in the draft because either they didn't have a first-round pick or something. They tried their shot with Carson Wentz with a first-round pick trade. That did not work out.
No, it did not.
You could understand the love of the potential that Carson Wentz has.
Sure.
Right. And I think that was the thing that really bled in. And then obviously the Frank Reich and Carson Wentz connection, but it just did not work out. And then of course, 3 years ago, we went out and used our first round pick to trade for DeForest Buckner. I am going to go with that 100, the 15th pick of the draft for DeForest Buckner. I'll do that every day and twice on Sunday. And then, of course, the drafts the last couple of years for quarterbacks just have not been very good. The talent pool has not been there, right? So there really hasn't been a lot of opportunity for the Colts to go out and get themselves a long-term starting quarterback. They did put their hand in the year that they went and got Carson Wentz. Their first look was Matt Stafford, right? But you're not going to match what the Rams traded for him. I mean, you're not going to give 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a starting quarterback and everything else. This year, I Bleav, is the year. There is some options, multiple options in the draft for quarterback this season. The Colts do have a first, a second, and 2/3 coming up because of the trade of Carson Wentz to Washington. I still have a hard time saying Commanders.
So do I. When we're in the NFC East, we have the same problem.
Right. I would prefer just to call them the football team. In all honesty,
The Commanders is bad. It's bad.
It is a bad situation, but they have plenty. They have some ammo to move up, plus a plethora of really good players that they could use if they need to trade to get up into the draft to go get themselves their long-term franchise quarterback of the future.
Now, I know you guys have a pretty good defense. I specifically look at Gilmore, Kenny Moore. I love McLeod. He was great for us. I'm happy to see him doing well over there. How do you feel about them going against Devontae Smith and Brown on Sunday?
Well, the Colts have actually played – this defense has played opposing offenses very, very good. I mean, the Colts beat the Kansas City Chiefs earlier in the year, and it was all defense, right? It was all defense that did that. There was some special teams effort as well, obviously, but the defense held down that team incredibly well. The issue, I like Gilmore against Brown. I like that matchup a lot. And now, obviously, AJ Brown is a very good player. I used to see him twice a year because he was a Titan. But AJ Brown is because he's a big, strong, firm hand receiver with good route running. He's not your burner, right? And I feel like that kind of fits into Gilmore's wheelhouse as well. He's not really great against your burner guys, but against your big, strong guys. So I kind of like Devonta Smith. Kind of scares me a little bit. All right, he's that little quick, twitchy dude, right? And that worries me a little. I think if there was a guy that I would double, in all honesty, it would not be AJ Brown. If I was the Colts, it would be Smith. The loss of Goedert really, I think, hurt you guys a ton because the tight end play, he was that, that safety blanket for Hurts. And that it's going to be interesting who's going to step up and if he can fill those shoes in that situation. But I like our defense. Our defensive front is very, very good. We may have the best defensive tackle duel in football right now between Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner. We feel like those two guys are incredibly good. We feel like both of them should make the Pro Bowl this year. And I think Grover leads the NFL in tackles for losses right now. So, he's pretty impressive. And then DeForest got like 6 sacks or so. So at a tackle position, that ain't too shabby either. 6 or 7. He might have 7 after the Raiders game. But and that's where you can mess up your scrambling quarterbacks is pressure up the middle, right? You get the pressure up the gut. They can't step in the pocket and take off and run forward. They're forced to run side to side or backwards. So as long as the Colts defense can contain Hurts, which is a tall task, I understand that, I feel like the Colts defense have a shot, but again, containing Hurts is a little bit more difficult than just saying it.
Right.
Yeah, and what I want to do now is I want to ask 2 questions here, and then we'll let you go. The first one is going to be, what is the key matchup that you're looking for?
By far, it is AJ Brown and Stephon Gilmore. That is going to be a monster matchup, in my opinion. Two guys at the top of their positions in the NFL going at it head to head. Gilmore has 3 game-saving plays, game-ending, game-winning plays so far this year for the Indianapolis Colts against guys, like Devontae Adams and people like that. So it'll be interesting to see and keep an eye on that matchup right there.
And the last one is something we discussed earlier. I told you before we came on, just so you were somewhat prepared, and I'm springing on you. So what is one lock? It's the Ulecka lock. What is your one lock for this weekend? Either this game or a game on Sunday or Monday or even the Thursday matchup?
That's interesting. So I'm not going to drop a lock on this game, just simply because this is a tough matchup, in my opinion. This is going to be the toughest matchup the Colts have had all year, obviously. I am going to say that the Bills bounce back. I feel like they should not have played Josh Allen last week. They should have let him rest his elbow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was incredibly apparent with, what do you have, like 3 picks or something like that? I mean, it was terrible.
2 picks and a fumble.
Yeah. 3 turnovers,
Wasn't great.
right? It was not good. I feel like a week, little extra rest with him, and I feel like that the Bills will bounce back hard against the Browns. I feel like this is a game where the Bills will probably win this by 2 touchdowns or more. I think that's my lock.
Okay, I like that. So before we let you go, where can everybody find you? What are you up to, just so they can keep an eye on you? Absolutely.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Colts_law, LAW, law as in short for Lawrence. I am also on YouTube, Lawrence Owen. You could also type in Bleav in Colts or Colts Law anywhere. You'll find my content. I have a ton of it. I've been doing this for 6 years. I have my Colts Law podcast, which I do multiple times, where I do my live game reactions, which I will be doing this Sunday. And then, of course, the Bleav in Colts with my co-hosts, former Colts cornerback Gerard Powers, and then obviously the starting safety for the Colts is also my co-host. Maybe you heard of him, Rodney McLeod. So
we're familiar for sure.
Very, very familiar. But again, thank you for joining us, giving some intel on the Indianapolis Colts, and hopefully it's a fun matchup on Sunday and it's a good game.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it a ton. I'm hoping for a great game. I'm hoping for something in the 20s for both teams, and see some good offense and something that I don't want to see a Thursday night football game on Sunday. Okay.
No, we don't want to see that.
No. All right. Appreciate you having me on.
Thanks for coming on. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Oh, no. All right. So got a little intel there from the Indianapolis Colts and Lawrence Owen. Really appreciate having him on. And, for me, it's just looking at this game. I want to break it down a little bit. But I first want to get reactions to the Eagles' first loss from you guys. We can touch on that. We could touch on, Mike saying that John Taylor's going to rush for 200 yards because of saying the run defense. But I want to get the reaction to the Eagles' loss, the first loss, and now they are no longer undefeated. And then we'll get back into the Colts matchup. But start with you, Kendall. What is your overall feeling from the game Monday night?
Overall feeling, I mean, it's not horrible, because I can confidently say that we did not play our best ball. Like, we easily played our worst game in the year. and we still had a chance to win with 2 minutes left in the game.
Mhm.
My biggest concern is obviously the running game. Today we got Linval Joseph, to hopefully, worse to make that better. But the defense needs to be better. I don't want to use Jonathan Gannon as an outlet, as an excuse, because I do think our players got burnt on Monday. There was times where Gannon had him set up for success, and there was times where Terry was cooking slay, or you weren't making tackles, or just the effort wasn't there. So again, I don't think the vibes are good. We should feel good about moving forward. A loss was due, but we got to regroup, and hopefully we can handle business on Sunday. And if we lose to the team who just hired Jeff Saturday as their interim head coach last week, we got bigger problems to worry about.
So I do think this loss was bad. It's tough to win games in the NFL. We know that, but this loss was bad. This was against a Commanders team that we destroyed in the first game. And it all comes down to me of preparation of game plan. So, Kendall, you mentioned the Jonathan Gannon, he had a tough game. He had a really tough game. And I think he came out with the Carson Wentz game plan, knowing how Carson Wentz holds on to the ball. Taylor Heineke got rid of the ball incredibly quickly the entire night. And combining that with running the ball. And once again, Jonathan Gannon, his default when he's in a little bit of a problem is he starts playing way off the ball, way off the old Jim Schwartz, sticks defense. And Taylor Heineke made those 5, 7, 8-yard throws the entire night when he had to. Combining that with, Fletcher Cox playing 70 snaps, that's ridiculous.
Right.
Combining that with not putting in a player, just fresh legs, sneak Nakobe Dean in there just for fresh legs. Combining that with atrocious officiating, which, you listen to Jason Kelsey and he says flat out, we had our chances. They did. I blame this loss exactly 0% on Jalen Hurts, and anybody that does is a moron, because those turnovers were not his fault. That throw that was intercepted was an MVP caliber throw.
Listen,
it was
the Pittsburgh game.
Placed.
That was the same throw he did in the Pittsburgh game, and AJ Brown came down with it.
But there's 3 guys there instead of 2.
Yeah.
And it literally went through his hand. So sometimes the ball doesn't break your way. We know that. The stupid penalties, look, you have to call the hit on Taylor Heineke. I understand that. Brandon Graham's got to know better. But at the same time, you also have to call the face mask on Dallas Goedert, because it changed the course of the game. So there was a lot of things that all added up against the Eagles, but I do give my biggest problem was Jonathan Gannon not making the adjustments needed.
For me, the game is frustrating. It's a frustrating game because everything seemed to bounce Washington's way. You had the huge snap over the head of Heineke, but he was able to get it, pick it up, throw it. It was, my opinion, it was intentional grounding.
Intentional grounding, yep.
I don't think he was out of the tackle box, but
the tackle box extends infinitely.
Yeah, that's beyond the point there. But for me, it's just everything kept bouncing Washington's way, and it was tough because you'd think, the Dallas Goedert face mask pull down. You'd think, hey, we missed that call at the end of the game. Maybe they give the Eagles that and not call the penalty on Graham, but of course. They did. Yes, it was a little too flagrant in terms of, but they didn't expect them to kneel down that quick. It is what it is. But they had their opportunities. DeQuez Watkins' deep pass. I don't know why he went to the ground. I thought
because he's touched the ball 5 times this entire season. He wanted to make something happen.
You would think he'd be able to catch that and keep going, or it is what it is. It sucks because right there it's 5 minutes and 45 seconds left. He catches it around the 23, 24-yard line.
Game changer.
And absolutely a game changer. You're down 5 points at that point almost in the red zone to be able to put yourself back on top. And then it's so frustrating because at the end of the half, you do 3 and out. They get the ball back. They come down. They kick a 58-yard field goal.
Right.
The Dallas Goedert play, they were able to get a big sack. It was a 55-yard field goal he made. The kicker made kick. Like I said, everything was just going Washington's way.
Yeah.
And the thing is, sometimes that happens. You look at all the teams. The team we're playing this Sunday, the Kansas City Chiefs had a bad loss to them early in the season. I think it was actually when we were in Washington, Chip. So I think that was the game week 3. So they had a bad game. Every team has a bad game. Every team has losses. The Eagles are the only one that didn't have a loss, and that's out of the question. Don't got to talk about the undefeated season. Don't have to get into that. They're facing adversity. This is the adversity that we asked for. It sucks they lost. You never want your team to lose. But
I don't think they were never going to go undefeated.
No, they weren't.
They were going to have a slip up. I looked at my wife early in maybe middle of the second quarter, and I said, "This is not our night." And you just knew. But the combination of things that happened during that game were insane, and there was no adjustments. There was no adjustments the entire game, and we weren't even playing the best version of what the Commanders were. I mean, that's a team without Chase Young still. Could you imagine?
And without 2 of their linebackers that played a lot. So yeah, it was.
My also complaint was, we were up 14-7 at one point, and Shane Steichen, which I personally love him. I think he'll get hired as a head coach this offseason. He got way too pass happy. We had a lead, and he just abandoned the run. And I don't know where it went because we're known to be that ground and pound team. I understand you want Hurts to get his numbers and you want to show off because that's what worked week 3. But clearly, obviously, Washington's going to take that tape from week 3, learn from it, just to make sure it doesn't happen again. So when you're up 14-3, yes, I want you to keep the foot on pedal, but also be conservative and learn to take what you can get. And he did not use a running game at all in the first half. And then when you saw it in the fourth quarter, late third, things started to go our way, but then it was too late. So I also think it goes on Gannon, it goes on Steichen, it also goes on Sirianni because Sirianni has some questionable decisions. So
Mike brings it up right here. The offensive game plan looked like early Sirianni play calling. Let Miles run in the game and let Jalen use his legs. Now,
and I think the thing before we move on past this is, you're coming off of a lot of breaks in those week spans, right? So you have the bye week, then you've got the Thursday, you got 2 games in a week basically, and then you have another 10 days. I mean, they have not played a lot of football, so they looked rusty. They didn't look as hungry. The crowd got knocked out of the game pretty quickly because it was a boring game, right? When you're running the ball 80 times and it's a dull game to watch. It felt almost like, hey, this is the game plan that worked against Washington the first time around. We're just going to use it again, and we'll start focusing on and they'll never say that it happened, but that's what it felt.
I think another big issue, and it goes with the Jonathan Gannon aspect of the adjusting, when they have 2 and 3 tight ends in there, and you're only going with a 6-man box and expecting the corners and safeties to come down and tackle when you've had struggles tackling this season, I think you're setting your defense up to fail by not putting the personnel out there, not putting more 5-man fronts, not putting 3 linebackers, 4-3, trying to add another extra body. Because if they have 2 to 3 tight ends, why not have Gardner Johnson come down and cover the nickel guy to be able to help yourself out? Because the other issue was Marlon Tuipulotu, who we'll talk about the roster moves and everything. Unfortunately, he's okay.
It didn't work.
He's okay in pass downs. He's okay with pass rush and pass downs. But when it comes to run stopping and stuff like that, he was getting either stood up or pushed back a few yards. And you can't have that if that's supposed to be your anchor of your defense. And that's where they're missing Jordan Davis, because Jordan Davis is that anchor, the able guy to hold up one, take on an extra guy, open the lanes for the linebackers to come through. And again, the whole Fletcher Cox 70 snaps, There's times where he looked uninterested. There's times that he looked a little slow, but he also could have been super gassed too. 70 plays is a lot that we've talked about limiting him, getting him maybe 35, 40 plays at most, not having him play as much, 50% of the snaps, keeping him fresh and stuff like that, which they weren't able to do now with Jordan Davis injury. But I just think, 3.1 yards per carry was what Washington had, 49 carries. I know Robinson had 26 carries for 86 yards. So it wasn't like they were gashing them, but the problem was they were getting those easy, manageable third downs, the 3rd and 4s, the 3rd and 5s, and able to convert them. And I think that was huge with not being able to get them, deep into like 3rd and long to be able to pin your ears back and rush the passer and to be able to cause havoc there. And I think that's something, again, they can learn off it, and other teams are going to use what Washington did. They're going to run the ball, and you're playing teams. We can, jump this over into talking about the Colts, a team that's going to want to run the ball. They have the best running back from last year, Jonathan Taylor. He's back healthy. So they're going to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. He had 147 yards last week.
Yes, he did.
They're going to use him, and they're going to run the ball. So that's where it becomes a little bit concerning. But again, I think they need to focus on keeping themselves in basic gap control and not getting out of their gaps.
Another issue was time possession.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 41-19, time. What is that? We cannot be doing that. That we are supposed to be doing that to other teams, not, Washington, who has, personally, again, I like Heineke, but he is not good enough to be leading an offense to have the ball 40 minutes. That's unheard of. That's just I don't think I've ever seen something like that before. And so there's just so many different factors as to why, we lost. And ultimately you have to just, be accountable. We had 4 turnovers. We could not get off the field on 3rd down. And, we were 3 and out too often. And, the offense just, didn't get together until it was too late.
So looking at this game with the Colts, and the Eagles made some roster moves that we could touch on. They placed Dallas Goedert and Marlon Tuipulotu on injured reserve. Goedert has a shoulder injury. They had placed Avonte Maddox on injured reserve before the game. So that was another loss. Josiah Scott stepped in. And I feel like Josiah Scott played well.
He did fine. His name wasn't mentioned. He was fine.
Exactly. So,
right.
Those guys going IR, they activate tight end Tyree Jackson from the PUP list. So it gives you that 3rd tight end. You don't have to go on the practice squad or go out, try to find another tight end there. So it adds him. I know there's been talk last year. There was a lot with him. Unfortunately, gets a back injury in training camp, and then he's out, and then comes back in the end of the year, plays in the Dallas game, then tears his ACL, gets hurt. So, it's been rough for him. He has potential, big 6'7", 250-pound tight end. So we'll see. Maybe help them in the run game, be able to put his helmet on some blockers. But also the biggest signing was signing veteran defensive tackle Linval Joseph. He played with the Chargers last year. He played with the Chargers the last couple of years, and then was with Minnesota and the Giants prior to that. 34 years old, 6'4", 329 pounds. He played pretty well last year with Los Angeles. Now, I know people want to bring up how Los Angeles, their run defense wasn't the greatest last year. Again, it's not the greatest this year. But when Joseph was on them, when they didn't have Brandon Staley as the head coach, de facto defensive mind, they were between 14 and 15 in the league in rush defense. So maybe a lot of it can be in terms of the way the style defense that is run by Staley. But for me, this is you're not asking him to be 70 snaps. You're not asking him to play 100% of the snaps. You're asking him to play a chunk of the snaps, to be able to be in there, be a veteran presence. And I like it because it gives them what they need, a big body up front to spell, Jordan Davis. And when Jordan Davis is back, imagine running situations. You have those two guys in the game together. So it's fun to think of because it can help. But again, he's not here to solve everything, but he's there to help.
No, but I think what feels different this year is you look at the expectations for the rest of the season. So, like, let's back up for a second. The Colts' expectations for the rest of the season, I think it's a lot up in the air. You hire a coach who's unproven. You're 4-5-1. You're teetering between the old guard of the quarterback play and the potential replacement guy. I think that you don't want to necessarily win your division because you want that future quarterback, but at the same time you're with it. You're going to kind of see how these next 3 weeks go. That's the Colts. The Eagles, you're making a Super Bowl run this season. So you notice a glaring weakness, which was defensive tackle, because your stud young defensive tackle is on injured reserve. Fletcher Cox can't play 70 snaps a game. You're going up against teams with Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry in the next couple of weeks. There's going to be running that happens. So what do? You go out and you get a defensive tackle that can spell Fletcher Cox when he's, exhausted. You have a guy that can take those 70 and split them 35 and 35. And then when, as you mentioned, when Jordan Davis gets back, now you've got another weapon in the tank. So I think Howie saw weakness. Nick Sirianni saw weakness. They went, this is what we need. They went out and got the best available. That's the difference in mentality, is that they are going, because the NFC is wide open right now. So is the AFC, by the way. This is one of the tightest football seasons I can remember.
I could say something right now, but I'm not going to say that.
Let me pull up your picture you sent me earlier.
Yeah, right. Yeah. My thing looking at this team too is, are they going to add something else? Because I think the roster still is at 52, if I'm not mistaken.
You can get rid of Britton Covey.
That's another subject that I don't want to even. Whatever. It's just it sucks.
It's bad. It is bad.
Why not just have Greg Ward up here? Why not just call Greg Ward?
Have Quez Watkins, have one of those guys back there, somebody who needs the ball to be explosive. I would love to see Quez Watkins back there because he is explosive with the football. He has not had enough opportunities this year because he just can't. My God, Britton Covey is terrible. I think Mike calling him Reno Mahi is generous. It's Rod Smart level bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And I know they also signed Marquise Blair, who started with the Seahawks a few games and played with the Panthers on the practice squad. I do expect them to probably elevate Marvin Wilson, have an extra body there. I know Linval Joseph said he would be ready to play, but I think you do need another body on, especially with a team like Indianapolis that's going to want to establish the run. You're going to need those bodies need to have those type of rotation to be able to not have Fletcher Cox out there 70 plays, 100%, 90% of the snaps.
He's not playing good enough.
No, not at all. And
I mean, you're paying him $14 million to do cardio. Like it's not good.
Yeah, it's frustrating. But looking at this game, and the one thing I want to bring up with the Colts, I understand the Colts. Defensively, DeForest Buckner is really good. They have some players.
They do.
But when you look at their schedule and who they've played this year, I understand their defense is playing at a top level. They have a top tier defense in terms of the yards per game and everything. But they played the Texans. They played the Jaguars twice. They played the Titans. They did play the Chiefs early. The Broncos, the Russell Wilson-led Broncos. They actually played the Titans twice, if I want to. And one of those Titans games, if I'm not mistaken, no, it was Ryan Tannehill both times. So, and then they played the Commanders and the Patriots and the Raiders. They played last Sunday. So not like the top tier offense. Now, when they look at the rest of their schedule, you're going to see how good this team is when they have the Eagles. I'm not going to Steelers or whatever. The Cowboys, Vikings, Chargers, and then the Giants and Texans. So they have some teams in there that's going to show them how good of a team they are. They aren't a team that you can overlook. By no means can you overlook them, but I think the numbers can be skewed a little bit because of the competition. And we know that division isn't the strongest.
Right.
But, for me, it's just and again, that loss may have humbled them to not look ahead. Not that I'm saying that they are looking ahead, but it gives them that, hey, we're not invincible. Let's go. Let's do our work. Let's dot the I's, cross the T's.
To takes pressure off while making sure that they respond to adversity. It does the same thing. You know what I mean? The looming, this is the undefeated team that puts a huge bullseye on our back. It flat out does. With that being said, with the Vikings having the record that they do, the Cowboys having the record that they do, I mean, the NFC is tight. We can't really afford to lose another game. Especially, and I'll even track it down a little further. With the NFC East as tight as it is, we really can't afford to lose another game. So the pressure is still there. I think that when will the 72 Dolphins pop? I mean, that's done now. I mean, we're good with that. But it gives Jalen Hurts a chance to be the captain of this team. He did everything that he needed to do. He just did. He did everything that he needed to do. But now we got to respond. I'm going to say Hayden Hurst because they're wearing the Bengal white. Mike would like to ask me my fantasy advice. Fryermouth or Hayden Hurst. I'm going to say start Hayden Hurst because Jamar Chase isn't playing, and they're wearing the Bengal white tiger uniforms. So, or as my wife would say, costumes. Costumes. There you go. So,
do you know what they look like? You remember those? I think
they look awful.
They're tasty cakes, but those ones with the white frost.
The zebra cakes. Zebra cakes.
Zebra cakes. Yeah, that's what they look like. The zebra cakes.
I was a fat kid.
Thanks for sharing.
I ate like a fat kid.
If there's go ahead.
No, go ahead. And again, thank you, Charles. Bye, Mike.
If there's one thing that's good about the loss on Monday is that yes, we're on a short week, but I think this team is probably ready to get back on the field.
They need to play
and put this loss behind them because that was ugly, and they probably want to play their best ball on Sunday. So, man, the Colts obviously aren't no slouch, and JT's obviously relevant, and their defense is decent. But I feel like even with Goedert out, I feel like we're going to have our way against them because this team is desperate to show back who they are and not just get walked over by JT.
I think that it's important, Kendall, what you said there is this team was ready to play Tuesday. They were pissed. Especially you look at a guy like Brandon Graham, who is a leader of this team. He was irate that he got called for that. Again, it was the right call. It was not a call that I'm happy with, but it was the right call. Brandon Graham knows he screwed up. He was ready to go and attack Tuesday. So this team has been festering now for a couple of days. We have a 1:00 game. This is one of those very last few remaining 1:00 games that we have. I think everything else is prime time the rest of the way, or at least 4:30. I mean, our schedule is late night heavy moving forward.
Yeah, and you can see possibly some flexes.
Yeah.
So, and one last tidbit on this game. Some injury things to watch out for the Colts aspect. I did see DeForest Buckner was listed on the injury report with a neck issue, something to watch. And because he is their best interior defensive player, him and Grover Stewart, like Lawrence mentioned, but definitely something to watch out there. Of course, it is early in the week, but gonna kind of switch it over here, and we're gonna get into our locks and get into our predictions. But before we do that, I do want to mention next week's show. We will not be on Wednesday. We will be on Tuesday night. We have a Packers podcaster coming on with us. So we switch it because Wednesday night is the Thanksgiving Eve with people traveling, all that kind of stuff. Tuesday night is going to work a little bit better to kind of break down that matchup of the Eagles-Packers Sunday night for next week. But getting into what happened last week, and I'm going to play one of the favorites.
It's time for the Ulecka locks of the week. Who's your lock?
So last week's locks, we had Chip, the defense, 3 sacks and 2 interceptions. I think they had 2 sacks and 1 interception. Close, but yeah. I had Quinn getting a sack, and that's another subject that we could talk about.
What is he?
Where has he been?
Yeah, I just hope this isn't the Ryan Kerrigan all over again.
And what's frustrating is that he's not playing a position that's difficult to to learn. In
Just
this
get
scheme.
there and go.
Pin your ears back. Go get the quarterback. And I understand he had 18.5 sacks last year, and we were all excited when we got him, as we should be. But what's going on, man? I mean, it's given Jannard Avery all over again because we gave a fourth to this guy. I mean, not that a fourth is major, and it is a late fourth, but we were expecting him to come in and do something, and we just have nothing. He's one of the worst graded players out of everybody on PFF. Out of everyone, and he's just not playing well, and I don't know what's going on, but I hope he can figure it out because we need him.
Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely need him. And then, Kendall, you had Hurts 2 rushing and 2 passing touchdowns. You were in 300 yards. Yeah,
Close, but no cigar.
Close, but no cigar there. So it goes into this week. The locks that we're going to have. I'm going to start off with you, Chip. What is your lock of the week?
And by the way, I misspoke. The Eagles have mostly 1:00 games the rest of the way. I just pulled up their schedule, and I think I mixed it up saying that they just went through a run of a bunch of late night games. But we have the Packers at 8:20, and then it's 1:00 games for the next month, which is so nice. I need a little Philly sports chill factor. All right, looking at this slate of games, I'm not going to pick anything out of this game because I need to see how the Eagles respond before I make any of those decisions. I am going to actually go into the Cowboys-Vikings game, which is a humongous game, by the way.
Big time game.
Who do we cheer for?
Yes.
That's the answer. Yes.
Yes. We have the tiebreaker over both of them, so I think you have to cheer for the Vikings in that situation because at least that you're securing more towards the winning of the division. I have Justin Jefferson going absolutely off this week. I have him.
Go ahead.
What's that?
Going off. I'm not going to write go off because if
No.
terms of
He's going to have 175 yards receiving at least and 3 touchdowns.
the Randy Moss effect.
Yes, the Diggs going all or nothing effect.
Kendall, what is your Ulecka lock?
I'm stuck between either Matt Ryan or Jonathan Taylor, but I think if I want to lock, I'm going to go with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is going to have under 225 yards passing. Under with 0 touchdowns.
Ooh, okay. I like that. That seems to be a good result for the Eagles if that is the case. My Ulecka lock, I'm actually looking at Thursday's game.
Get it out of the way.
Yeah, just get it out of the way. When I'm wrong, it's out of the way already. I don't got to worry about it anymore. But I'm going to go with the Tennessee Titans are going to beat Green Bay by at least 2 scores.
Whoa. I like it.
And Derrick Henry is going to have a touchdown. So, I was
You're parlaying your lock.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to do that. And Tennessee wins by 2 scores. So that brings us to Ulecka Locks. And then this now brings us to the picks. Our game predictions. The Philadelphia Eagles go to Lucas Oil Stadium to play the Indianapolis Colts, 1:00 Sunday, CBS. Who do you got? Kendall, you're up first.
This is tough because obviously, we're off a bad loss, and Colts are actually off a big win. So historically, teams that are off a big win and teams that are off a bad loss, team off a bad loss is going to come back and answer. So I'm going to say Birds 28, Colts 17.
All right. Chip?
I think that, unfortunately, the way that the Commanders played left a blueprint on how you beat this team. And the Colts do it better. So as far as time of possession goes, we could see something very, very similar. I think that the Colts are going to run the ball a lot, especially also because they have Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan's not a great quarterback in this league anymore. And Jonathan Taylor is one of the 2 best running backs in football. So I think the injuries are starting to stack up. I am taking the Eagles. But I am taking them in a 17-14 win.
Low scoring.
Ooh, it is low scoring there. So I think it's going to be a tough matchup. Taylor, I think Taylor will have over 100 yards. How many rushes he has, that's to be seen. But I think that the Eagles will be able to get to Matt Ryan, able to get to that offensive line who has struggled. And I think it's going to be a super high scoring game. But I got the Eagles winning the game 24-16. So it's going to still be a close game. You are going to Indianapolis. You are playing at Indy, so I still expect it to be a close ball game. But I think the Eagles will be able to pull it out 24-16. And that brings us to the end of the show here. And for hopefully get this win, get back on the right track, so we can break down next week's matchup a little bit more, happy when we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles and not have to kind of dwell on what could have been. And they still have a tough road ahead. They got some tough matchups coming up, but we're always going to be here. And the way we end every show, again, thanks to Kendall, Chip, and myself. I think myself there. That's great.
Thanks, Johnny, for being on tonight. You did a great job.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. You're welcome. Always. You're welcome. But with that, we're going to end the show as we always do with a very happy and cheerful Go Birds.
This is Matt Ware. Hey, for all the Eagle content you need, go follow All About the Birds. They do a damn thing. Check them out.
Hey, Eagles fans, I may be in Tampa, but I know where to find the best Eagles content out there. Check out my friends at All About the Birds.
Philadelphia, what's up? This your boy Freddie Mitchell, a.k.a. Fred X. It's all about the bird.
All birds all the time. All birds all the time.
All About the Birds provides you with weekly analysis, game recaps, informative interviews, and it's all birds all the time.